Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, depending on where you are joining us from. Welcome to the webinar entitled Preparing for COP29, Inter-parliamentary Dialogue on Climate Change. My name is Aleksandra Blagojevic. I'm a program manager on international development at the Inter-Parliamentary Union, and I will be your moderator today. We are just 5 months away from COP29 in Azerbaijan, and the IPU is organizing this webinar to provide the opportunity for parliaments to discuss key climate issues in the lead up to these major climate negotiations. The parliamentary meeting at COP29 will be organized on the 16th and 17th of November this year in Baku, in Azerbaijan. And official invitations will be circulated to parliaments soon. Today's event will provide an opportunity to hear from the rapporteur of the parliamentary meeting and to provide a platform for parliaments to exchange insights on their climate priorities in an effort to shape the outcome document of the meeting. We will not be discussing administrative issues related to the meeting in Baku. I know some of you are planning to go and may have some questions. We hope to be having this discussion soon, but not today. Let's hope that we focus on the themes that will be useful for our rapporteur as he is working on the preliminary draft outcome document. The IPU continues to prioritize climate action. So we are very happy to see parliaments from so many different countries joining us today, and your inputs will certainly be of great value to this collaborative effort. In line with usual IPU practice, the process for the preparation and adoption of the outcome document for the COP29 parliamentary meeting will be highly consultative. The draft outcome document will be shared with parliaments this summer. Following this, parliaments will have the opportunity to submit amendments in writing, and there will also be an opportunity to further discuss the outcome document at the next IPU assembly in Geneva in October. Before we hear from our presenters, I would like to go over some just essential housekeeping rules. So if you can please change or edit your name on Zoom on the platform to show which parliament or organization you represent. I would like to kindly ask you to also keep your microphone muted when not speaking. And if you can use your electronic hand to raise it to when you would like to request the floor. We also request that we only have 1 hour for this conversation, so we request that you kindly keep your interventions short and to the point to allow enough time for the discussion. The webinar is recorded, and the recording will be posted on the IPU website. And lastly, the languages of the webinar are English, French, Spanish, and Arabic. I would now like to ask my colleagues if Mr. Wavon William, the president of the IPU Standing Committee on Sustainable Development, is ready to speak. He is also a member of the National Assembly of the Seychelles, and we have asked Mr. William to highlight why COP29 is particularly important and what opportunities the parliamentary meetings offers for advanced climate action. He unfortunately had some technical problems as we were preparing for this meeting, so I'm just asking my colleagues to confirm if he is ready to speak now.
Mr. William has reconnected on a different device. I think we may be able to ask if he's ready to take the floor, and if not, I suggest we proceed to Mr. Mammadov.
Mr. William, would you be able to speak now? If no, we will certainly invite you to speak whenever you have a good connection. So it is my great pleasure to now give the floor to Mr. Sultan Mammadov, who is a member of parliament from Azerbaijan and rapporteur of the parliamentary meeting at COP29. Mr. Mammadov, I give you now the floor.
Thank you very much, dear Alexandra, for your introduction, and your excellencies, members of parliament, dear friends, respected members of the IPU, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, And first of all, it's my privilege to have the floor, to have the chance to brief you about COP29 Parliamentary Platform, which I am going to talk about now. And it's my honor, it's honor for my country to host COP29, as you know, and also to host each of you in a few months in November in Baku. So I will make a very brief speech and try to touch upon the document which Alexandra underlined. And at the same time, I would like using the chance to thank all IPU team members and also our experts from the UNEP and from the UNFCCC who supported me in drafting the document, which, as Alexandra mentioned, will be provided to you soon, and which will be main document for our future discussions and working on. So first of all, again, I am honored to greet you on behalf of the leadership of the Milli Majlis Parliament of the Republic of Azerbaijan. I believe that agenda of this important meeting will make very important contributions to the global struggle with the climate change. My country has been granted with the right to host the 29th session of the Conference of the Parties of the UNFCCC COP29, thanks to the great trust of the international community. Despite being recognized in the world for its hydrocarbon resources and receiving huge profits from the sale of the fossil energy, Azerbaijan has always demonstrated its readiness to contribute to the process of the transition to the green energy. As a result, our country has achieved a huge leap and ranked 32nd in the report of the World Economic Forum according to the Energy Transition Index. Azerbaijan is in the list of the leading countries in terms of the share of the investment in GDP into renewable energy sources. As you know, on May 16 of this year, Memorandum of Understanding was signed in Geneva between the Milli Majlis Parliament of the Republic of Azerbaijan and the IPU regarding the organization of parliamentary conference within the framework of the COP29. The memorandum envisages obligations with the parliamentary conference to be held on November 16th and 17th of this year, with the participation of the parliamentarians representing different countries of the world. For more than 10 years, IPU has been promoting the active participation of parliaments in the fight against the global climate change through the organization of parliamentary meetings within the framework of the Conference of the Parties. We prepared draft document for the COP29 parliamentary session based on the final documents of the parliamentary sessions held within the COP27 and COP28, as well as discussions on the draft resolution adopted in the 148th Assembly of the IPU. I would like, using the chance, again, as I mentioned, to express my appreciation to everyone who helped me in drafting this paper. Let me slightly touch upon the main directions contained in the document. First, the document calls on parliaments to support the actions of the governments of the countries they represent through legislation and regulatory mechanisms to achieve rapid, substantial, and sustainable reductions in greenhouse gas emissions in line with the nationally determined contributions and the goals of the Paris Agreement. The draft document emphasizes the need for increased joint initiatives and knowledge-sharing joint efforts among all members of the international community to establish more agile, operative, and comprehensive cooperation mechanisms, in particular the sharing of the robust and transparent data to mitigate the effects of the extreme weather events such as natural disasters, floods, and droughts. One of the main issues highlighted in the draft document is about active work of governments and close cooperation to develop and implement large-scale action programs for efficient use of the water resources, reduction of the losses, creation of the new water sources, improvement of management in the field of drinking water supply, and other directions. The need for flexible, operative, and comprehensive cooperation mechanisms to overcome the consequences of natural disasters on an international scale is underlined in the document. The document emphasizes the need for parliamentarians to take more initiatives and joint efforts in these directions, and recommended that they call on their government to support countries affected by natural disasters. Legislation that encourages less use of the fossil fuels and accelerates the transition to green energy is critical to achieving the goal of net zero emissions. At the same time, improving the legislation in the field of prevention of harmful effects of sewage radioactive waste, and domestic waste on human health, and the environment is one of the priority topics on the agenda of the Parliament. The draft document urged parliaments to encourage the governments to invest more in accelerating the transition to green, especially renewable energy, to implement the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. At the same time, draft document stresses the importance of creating a new legal mechanism for national companies and transnational corporations to play a more active role in climate change programs. Climate finance will be the main topic of the discussion at COP29. At the current stage, international financial institutions should cooperate more closely with developing countries in order to promote climate investment and attract global climate finance through the global green funds. Parliaments can contribute to the formation of the favorable legal conditions in this area, both as institutions performing the functions of improving existing legislation and creating new laws. The document emphasized the importance of supporting reforms that serve to increase the availability of financing in the fight against climate change. The need for developed countries to fulfill their financial commitments, including supporting reforms by global financial institutions that enhance the accessibility of climate financing for developing countries and allocating resources appropriate to the existing needs, and to support the urgent transfer of the loss and damage funding to countries on the front lines of climate change is highlighted in the document. Legislative activities to support innovations offered by the private sector, stimulating initiatives that involve the application of the new technologies and supporting access to such technologies, as well as the work with the governments to support the technology transfer to ensure access to modern technologies that allow developing countries to utilize green energy sources priced as affordably as possible are highlighted in the document. In addition, the draft document emphasizes the importance of broad involvement of the civil society institutions in the fight against climate change, because putting a difficult mission like fighting climate change on governments alone is not enough to achieve the desired results. Today, cases of massive deforestation for industrial purposes are recorded in various regions of the world. The draft document calls on Parliament to support forest protection and restoration initiatives and encourage activities in this direction. The draft document calls for the creation of objective monitoring mechanism to ensure transparency in the implementation of the commitments related to climate change, in particular the implementation of the NDCs, which shall be revised in 2025, and also commits to review implementation of recommendation of the parliamentary meeting and promotes the stock-taking of efforts through the IPU prior to COP30 in 2025. It should be noted that the document also invites parliamentarians and governments to establish a new and effective and agile multi-stakeholder mechanisms for collaboration between parliaments and government bodies in order to coordinate initiatives across ecological, social, economic, administrative, and legislative domains to ensure a unified approach to climate action. And as it was mentioned, the document will be presented to all members of the organization by Secretariat of the IPU in the coming months. And I want to thank each of you and of course let you know that I look forward to working with you and discussing important issues related to future of our world at COP29 Parliamentary Meeting in Baku. So during this meeting, I am seeking for the feedback for the recommendation from every member reflecting their national priorities in the fight against the climate change and also referring to the NDCs, so that the document that we are going to draft and we are going to present to you and will then request to reflect on that will contain all national priorities in order not to miss anything that you consider important. And I am very much sure that during the coming months, during the discussion of the document and further in Geneva, where we expect to get the document preliminarily approved prior coming to my country, where we will be more than happy and privileged to bring this document as an outcome document from the parliamentarian conference, which will be complementary to the achievements, tasks, and goals of the COP29 in general. So I would like once more to thank IPU team members, all of you who joined this call. And at the same time, I will be more than privileged once more to extend the invitation to each of you to take your time to visit my country. And even though dear Alexandra mentions that we are going to not discuss any administrative issues, but as your colleague member of the Parliament of Azerbaijan, I will be at your disposal to address any issues that you may have before your planned trip to Azerbaijan. So I once more in advance welcome to you, my country, and I thank you for your time, and thank you, Carlos, thank you, Alexandra, for your valuable support to me as a rapporteur, and I'm sure that together as a one team we will manage to bring the document which we are seeking for and we are looking forward to getting. Thank you very much for your attention, for your time.
And thank you very much, Mr. Mammadov, for this presentation, for all your work on the preliminary draft. As you said, the draft is still not ready for circulation. It will be ready after this consultation because you wanted to have a broad consultation before you share anything with the IPU members. So thank you for that. I would like to now open the floor. You have heard Mr. Mammadov. He wants suggestions. He wants your opinion on the themes that he has already outlined. He has spoken about the importance of international cooperation, about climate finance, about water issues, the role of civil society, the role of private sector. Do you have any comments on that? Any suggestions? Do you have any other areas to suggest to Mr. Mammadov to consider including in the outcome document? Please think about that. We will have a round of interventions from the floor, and raise your electronic hand. Before I invite people from the floor, I would just like very briefly to give the floor to our committee president, Mr. Wavin William from Seychelles, who himself is a strong champion on climate change issues and who certainly has many good suggestions to give to you, Mr. Mammadov. Mr. Wavin William, the floor is yours.
Hello, greetings, honorable colleagues, and Alexandria and Kali. I would like to make this comment. Since 2009, the IPU has been jointly organizing side parliamentary events with the host country governments and parliaments, organizing the COP meetings. These parliamentary meetings are very important alongside the COP's events for representatives of global parliaments to also get involved. The IPU Global Platform of Parliaments of 180 national parliaments, such gathering organized by IPU is critical to discuss important issues of climate change, promote inter-parliamentary knowledge exchanges on global urgent topics. These meetings are crucial to amplify the voices of parliaments in the climate negotiations. These meetings not only brings together members of parliaments, the world's leading climate scientists, and representatives of civil society amongst to congregate. At this juncture, I thank the IPU Secretariat for the opportunities and for the oversight tools, kits on SDGs and climate change, as well as the launching of its 222 to 26 strategy, which put climate change and sustainable development at the core of its focus. COP29 is being referred to as the finance COP, as negotiations for a new climate finance goal will surely take center stage. It is common knowledge that current climate finance is inadequate. Past climate change financial pledges have never been respected to a number of reasons. It has been estimated by experts that developing countries, including the small vulnerable such as the seeds, will need trillions of dollars more in climate finance by 2030. My country is no exception, as I have seen the estimated figures to adjust, mitigate, and adapt. This COP then is of paramount importance to ensure that global climate finance is seriously looked at to address the goals of the Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Goals. The COP parliamentary meeting will again give the chance to IPU members of parliaments to share their own national experiences, needs, and priorities on climate action. Look at the alternative possibilities of increasing climate finance and step up ambitions through our representative functions as legislators. At the parliamentary meeting at COP28 in Dubai, Parliamentarians agreed on a number of actions, including the need to give particular attention to the priorities of SIDS and the least developed countries to build resilience. At COP29, as we reconvene, there is a need to assess and take stock of our national, regional, and global parliamentary actions in support of the most vulnerable who are bearing the brunt of climate change at the front line. It will create the opportunity for IPU parliamentarians to assess how parliaments are implementing IPU decisions, such as the recent resolution, Partnership for Climate Action, promoting access to affordable green energy, and ensuring innovation, responsibility, and equity, adopted at the 148th IPU Assembly in March of this year. I encourage you and look forward to your participation at COP29. Climate change knows no boundaries, sovereignty, or preferences. Climate change is an existential threat, a threat that needs our collective effort and joint cooperation to change our development models and style of living. Make it a must to be in Baku at COP29, where our collective thoughts and voices matter. I thank you.
And thank you so much, Mr. William. We will now open the floor for comments and suggestions on the outcome document for the parliamentary meeting at COP29. I see three members of parliament who have already raised their hands. Please, for the others, raise your electronic hand if you would like to take the floor. So we will invite the following MPs in this order: Mrs. Rosa Galvez from Canada, Mr. Saudi Al-Rawaili, and then Dr. Mohammed Ali from Bahrain. So Mrs. Rosa Galvez first.
Oh, dear colleagues, yeah, so I'm senator, independent senator at the Canadian Senate. I think we are very late in reporting the reduction of emissions, and we are putting everybody at the same level, and this is not working. I think that it is evident that developed countries and vulnerable countries are in a completely different situation. While pressure must be put in developed countries to reduce emission, efforts must be put in developed countries and vulnerable countries to adapt to the climate change. And our discussions should reflect that issue. Finance of climate change is not really happening at the speed that it should happen. We have seen extreme weather events destroying critical infrastructure, especially in vulnerable countries. And I think that it is time that we involve the finance sectors that are helping sometimes without wanting necessarily increasing the crisis. I'm talking about the banks, including multilateral banks, insurance, pension plans that need to align with the 1.5 scenario, which is the only scenario that will take us to where we want to land, which is net zero before 2050. If we don't have the assistance of the financial sector, it is impossible for the other sectors to attain net zero. So I would like to see this reflected in our report. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much. The next one is Mr. Saud Al-Rawaili. Sir, if you can also tell us where you come from, and I'll give you the floor.
Greeting all, Saud Al-Rawaili from Saudi Arabia, from the Shura Council in Saudi Arabia. First of all, I would like to convey my sincere thanks to IPU for hosting this meeting, and also to the government of Azerbaijan for hosting COP29. Thanks to Mr. Sultan for overcome the main points of the document. There are many issues really raised in the last 3 or 4 meetings in Glasgow and Sharm el-Sheikh, and also in Dubai. I think one of the main issues, which is also Mr. Sultan talked about, is despite the progress made, there is we still have not really in the track to meet the long-term goals. I'm talking here about the huge gap in fundraising goal, fund levels. Talking about almost $500 billion by 2030 or so. I think the countries, all countries, especially developed countries, have to really raise funding for that one. The other issue that's also raised by Mr. Sultan, which is those 2 points are important, is the international cooperation in terms of knowledge sharing and technology transfer between nations, developed and development countries. So we need to share this one, and many developing countries need funding and technology transfer and data. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Now give the floor to Dr. Mohammed Ali from the Shura Council of Bahrain.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon. Thank you for the IPU for organizing such important gathering, actually for the participants from other countries to be in line what is going to be prepared in the coming COP. And I would like also to thank Azerbaijan for preparing for the COP29, which is coming in November this year. As we all know that the issues been discussed in a number of COP in the last 20 or 30 years is changing from time to time, and now the focus, I think, in COP29 will be on finance. I think if we agree that the developing countries get support from developed countries in the process of changing the action of climate change in their countries, this is a very important issue. Another thing, I think the upcoming document, which is in the last, which will be in the parliamentary meeting of COP29, I want this document to focus on what has been achieved since COP28. We know that number of issues has been discussed in COP28, which is very important, which this COP28, which has been taken place in Dubai. I would like to see what achievement have we done since COP28 in the issues that are very important to the developing countries. Thank you so much.
Thank you also very much for your interesting suggestions. I would like to ask Mr. Mammadov for his initial reactions to these suggestions.
Thank you very much, dear Alexandra. So let me thank everyone with their very valuable comments, recommendations, and directions that will be very useful for us in drafting again and working on this outcome document. So as it was mentioned, Madam Laviolette so mentioned that this difference between the developing and developed countries and their roles and impact of the environmental issues, at the same time the countries which are more responsible for this climate change and so on. So the document first of all, we will accept and consider all recommendations, and we'll make sure that the documents through our experts, through the IPU and our expert team from Azerbaijan will work on that, and we will answer to every comment which we heard from you. But I fully support all what you mentioned. So importance of the finance, which is, as you mentioned, is not happening right now. Then at the same time, establishment of the multilateral bank and insurance, which will ensure that further finance. But since the main subject of the COP29 will be climate finance, so of course we will do our best to put more on this paper about finding the new mechanisms, how to engage private sector, how to ensure that international banks will be more activated, more responsible for bringing more funding for this issue. So the documents will be structured. When we come to you with a document, I am sure that with the support of the IPU, we will indicate even structure of the document, how we will put together. It's a role of the parliamentarians in implementation of the environmental programs, the role of the countries investing for the green energy, and the role of the parliaments to provide the legislative basis for implementation of the green energy new mechanisms. At the same time, we will talk about how to engage private sector and also international institutions, financial institutions, to engage more funding. We will then turn to the, of course, role of the communities, the role of the minorities, different issues at the same time. And as it was mentioned by Mr. Rawaili and Mr. Dr. Mohammed, so we have to ensure about the monitoring mechanism, which will be one of the paragraphs in the document to follow up, to analyze how the developed countries are implementing their responsibilities, how the countries implement their national strategies based on the NDCs, which they will present in 2025. I would like also, of course, to thank Mr. Rawaili and Dr. Mohammed for their warm words in address to Azerbaijan, which will be our privilege to host you in the country. And at the same time, of course, as it was already mentioned, the support from the developed countries to developing countries, it's not only financial support, it's not only providing the new green energy technologies, as it was mentioned in the 148th Assembly, it's also how to support the developing countries to be engaged in production of the new green energy technologies. So exchange of the financial support, new technologies, exchange of the new technologies. At the same time, in next step, how to make sure that the countries will be engaged in the production of this equipment, as I witnessed during discussion in Geneva, will be part of this document. And of course, what we achieved after the COP28, it was my first question when I came as a member, I became as a member of this IPU family, when I read the COP28 documents. I'm sure that this will, we have, as I mentioned, in 2025, during the presentation of NDC, so countries will have to reflect, will have to present their achievement. But at the same time, in this document, as we mentioned, we propose to have the monitoring monitoring method, how to analyze, how to follow up the implementation of the all the actions reflected in the COP28. So this is very well noted, and I would like just once more to stress out that we also provide offered here to have the multi-institutional mechanism, which will not only talk about the parliament, at the same time talk about the different institutions at the country level, how they cooperate and how they bring these environmental issues impact in different sectors. So this is my just brief reflections. I am sure that every your comments, very valuable recommendations, will be very well noted and considered and included in the document, of course, during the discussion with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I would like to go back to Mr. Raven William, this time in his capacity as a member of parliament from the Seychelles. The Seychelles is a small island developing state, and Mr. William himself has been really a strong advocate, a strong voice for inclusion of the SIDS in negotiations, in the IPU as well, and especially in the area of climate change. So Mr. William, do you have any suggestions for Mr. Mammadov as he prepares his draft outcome document? What are the specific needs of the SIDS that he should bear in mind?
Thank you, Alexandria. I would say that, I mean, when I look back at all the discussion that is, or meetings that are going on, I feel that specificities of small island developing states are not being looked at. For example, we are fighting for the international organizations to, I mean, in the way they are classifying countries. For example, SIDS, most of the SIDS are classified as high middle income countries, and we cannot access concessional loans to be able to support our mitigation and adaptation programs that we have. So we are stressing on the point of the consideration of the multidimensional vulnerability index to be considered, because this is what seats are fighting for. And up to now, I mean, I really don't see that being factoring in all the discussion. So, for example, when we are talking about the loss and damage fund, I mean, I don't know how the high middle income countries will be rated in terms of getting access to the funding. So there are a lot of these issues to be sorted out. So I would also like to stress on the need for, I mean, looking at the legislation that we have in place right now, I mean, in the agreements, I mean, how can we get developed countries to commit themselves?
Thank you, Mr. William. I would like now to invite a representative from Libya. I don't see the name, Mrs. Rabia, if I see well. And I would also like to draw your attention to the chat where my colleague Thomas Fitzsimons from the Director of IPU Communications posted about the IPU campaign on climate change. It was a campaign that we did last year. We are continuing this year. I will invite Thomas to tell you briefly about this campaign as well, but we first go to Libya to hear their suggestions from the outcome document.
Hello, may peace be upon you. At the outset, I would like to thank the IPU for this very important meeting and for having given us the opportunity to give our observations on COP29. And I would like to thank Azerbaijan for hosting this great event. Of course, my country, Libya, is one of the countries that are damaged by climate change. And we've seen what has happened lately in Darna, the natural disaster there, and all the damages that we have gone through. And until now, we are still suffering from the consequences of Daniel. I hope that there will be a space given to Libya to talk about this. In fact, after what had happened, we have seen other phenomena in other regions, such as the disappearance of some of the species, some of the plants, some of the animals, and also many other consequences that have resulted from Daniel. And I would like to tell you in this meeting that through the Libyan Parliament, we are currently working on holding a summit related to climate inside of Libya, and hopefully you will be able to take part in that summit and to give us your suggestions and your expertise in this regard, because through this summit of the Libyan Parliament, the Parliament would wish to work on issues such as legislative reforms and also moving to alternative solutions to the climate crisis. And this is what I wanted to share with you. Thank you so much.
And thank you all so much. Thank you and really good luck with the conference. I now invite my colleague Thomas Fitzsimons to tell you about the IPU communications campaign on climate change.
Thank you very much, Alex, and good day to the honourable members of Parliament and dear colleagues. Thank you for this opportunity to give you a very brief update on the climate campaign. So I put the link in the chat. The campaign, you will probably have heard of it as we launched it a year ago. It's called Parliaments for the Planet. And the slogan is My Parliament, My Planet. And the objective is really to encourage parliaments and parliamentarians to go further and faster when it comes to climate action, especially in the lead up to COP29 in Baku, but also looking ahead to the 10-year anniversary of the Paris Agreement, which will be next year. There are two parts to the campaign. Part one is about greening parliaments. That was the focus of our campaign last year, encouraging parliaments to decarbonize, to go from brown to green. This year, the second part of the campaign is really about the Paris Agreement and decarbonizing and encouraging parliaments to take action when it comes to legislation, budgeting, oversight of government promises on the Paris Agreement. So that's where we're heading this year. We want to keep the momentum going for the campaign. There are lots of ways that you can contribute. We've already had some great contributions from, for example, Mr. William and Mr. Mamadov on this call, who are climate champions, and we interviewed them as part of the campaign, and they shared some of the good practice that they have in their countries. So a video interview or testimonial, if you want to become an IPU climate champion, something that we have done dozens of these videos. And I'm happy to say they've been viewed by close to 200,000 people. So we're starting to get a global audience for these subjects, which is great. Another way you can contribute as well is to send us good practice or case studies of parliamentary action in your country or regional cooperation between parliaments, which could be replicable, which is something that the other members could benefit from. If you're interested in joining the campaign, please don't hesitate to write to me directly. I'll put my contact details in the chat, and we'd be very happy to amplify any good practice that you have in your countries. Thanks very much. I'll stop here. Alex, back to you.
Thank you so much, Thomas. Mr. Mamadov, any reflections from you on what we have heard from Mr. William and from Libya?
Yeah, thank you, Alexandra. I would like just to thank respected my colleague from Libya for the warm words. At the same time, as she mentioned, that there are a number of the countries, many countries, who are very much impacted, damaged by the environmental change, and we are sure that we will get all the recommendations and experiences from these countries, and we'll try to unite all these issues in our outcome document. I just would like again once more to thank Mr. William for his leadership in the committee, and which was the outcome document which we put together. It's very much based on the last discussion in Geneva of the committee, and which reflects the many outcome messages from that document. I just would like to underline that we as the parliamentarians, we make the decision as in our country level for the final approval of the budget. So we have a strong role of the financial issues as well. So we are those who work with the people in the grassroots level. We are those who work with the private sector. So I am very happy to see the strong role of the IPU getting together, mobilizing parliamentarians from everywhere to contribute to this national strategies to fight with the climate change. So I am sure that the document which will come as the outcome document from Baku during the COP29 will be really a feasible document which will be implemented, and we will in COP2030, this will be very useful document to reflect on what kind of achievements we have done. So I would like once more to thank everyone who supported Azerbaijan during the voting for the COP29 hosting. So it's great honor for Azerbaijan and great responsibility. And I'm sure that during our next discussions, I will reflect more on about our achievements, about our experience. And I'm very grateful to Thomas, who from the first minute kind of talked to me and mobilized everyone around us to contribute to this to the parliamentarian platform which will be held in Baku. So thank you to each of you, and we very much look forward to our further discussion, to your further reflections, your further recommendations, and at the end, of course, I will be more than happy to host you in my country in Baku. Thank you very much, Alexandra.
So, and indeed, Mr. Mamadov, we have more requests to take the floor. We go first to Mr. Samu from Zimbabwe.
No, thank you very much, Alexandra, and also a very big thank you to the IPU for organizing, this webinar, and thank you also, Sultan Mamadov, for, going through the background document. My points essentially, bring us back to, the global stocktake which was a very big thing, in Dubai, and noting the fact that, we could not actually reach, the global goal on finance, the 100 billion, per year. And that's very, recorded, and it's notable. We are now going into what we now refer to as a finance COP, looking at the pledges to the loss and damage, also looking at the collective quantifiable goal on finance, and also trying to look at what Article 6, on carbon markets will bring, in terms of, resources to, implement, NDCs. My appeal to members of parliament, is that I think let's also talk with our negotiators back home, with the executive, so that they are aware of the requirements that we have as representatives, of the people. And if you recall, the convention actually speaks to the issue of, differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities, for all the different countries. The developing countries are looking forward to developed countries to make financial contributions to allow them to implement, the requisites program to meet, mitigation, targets, and driving towards, net zero, emissions. So my plea really to members is that let us continue to talk to the negotiators, to talk to the executive, so that they can represent the people we represent, as parliamentarians. I thank you.
Thank you very much. The next one is Mr. Siddiqui Sisse, who I believe comes from Guinea. Mr. Sisse, do you hear us? If not, we will come back to you, Mr. Raven William, and followed by Mr. Mohamed Ali Fenira from Tunisia.
سوف أتدخل باللغة العربية. السلام عليكم.
I will be speaking in Arabic. Thank you, Alexandra. I'd like also to thank the IPU for this very important encounter. I'd like to thank the state of Azerbaijan and Mr. Mamadov for this great presentation. When it comes to the suggestions, I hope that there would be a space open to talk about the African continent, because it is one of the continents mostly damaged when it comes to agriculture and natural disasters. There's a water scarcity in the African continent, but its contribution to the environmental pollution is a very, very weak contribution. And COP28 was very important, and the next COP is going to be a finance COP, and I hope that the funding would be made relative between those who contribute really to the pollution and those who do not contribute, but that are damaged by the climate change. There are countries that contribute to the climate change, others that are subject to climate change. This is why the financing should be different between one country and another. Of course, we do call upon all the countries to take part in the funding, but in disproportionate rates based on the pollution issued by every state, especially states that are developed and other states that are considered as developing countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Raven William, please.
Thank you, Alexandria. I would like also to suggest that if possible, to get reports of status of the development process of the loss and damage fund. I mean, to know how far we are with its implementation, because this would give us members of parliament an idea how to propose new ideas in terms of how this new funding mechanism should go, because I feel that there are work being done, but members of parliament do not know really what stage these negotiations are at right now. And I would also like to mention that there is a need as well to look at national legislation in terms of how government can, bring on new taxes in terms of, getting the private sectors who are involved in polluting the environment, so as to ensure that countries and government can get additional funding to support the adaptation and mitigation projects. So I feel that when the report is being done and the resolution, I think that we should maybe factor that as well in. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. William. Mr. Sisse, we go back to you. I hope you can hear us now. Please tell us where you come from.
Je vous entends très bien, madame.
Yes, I hear you very well. Thank you.
Bonjour.
Good afternoon.
Vous recevez?
Can you hear me as well?
Bonjour tout le monde.
Say good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Membre du personnel parlementaire de la Guinée.
I come from Guinea.
De la division coopération.
I'm head of the cooperation division.
Beaucoup, Monsieur Williams,
I would like to thank Mr. William from the Social Parliament for those great words. You summed up the priorities of the African continent in terms of development, in terms of climate change as well. As head of territorial development in Guinea, I would say that we are facing some issues when it comes to funding and financing. So I'd like to use the opportunity of this webinar to raise awareness on the criteria on how to be invited to COP29. It's sometimes difficult to be invited, whereas climate change is a priority for the Parliament of Guinea.
Je crois que si nous participons
I believe
aux travaux de la COP29 en
it is important for us to take part in COP29. This would allow us to exchange with different partners, to make our voices heard when it comes to climate change priorities in Guinea. But as I said, Mr. William said already a lot about the concerns of the African continent. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We are going now back to Mr. Mamadov for his reflections on what he heard from the last four speakers.
Thank you, Alexandra. Thank you very much. And I just reiterate my thanks to everyone for bringing the valuable comment, which once more proves that we are on the right track. And we talk about the international cooperation. We talk about the very much importance of the climate finance, which will be the main subject of the COP29 in Baku. And I'm sure that so we will have the document which we developed will reflect all the indicated issues. I am grateful to Mr. William, who mentioned about the just our outlook to the legislation on how we improve the legislation, focusing on the taxes, which will address the issues from the private sector, how they pollute or how they protect the environment. Of course, water issues and comments from my respected colleague from the Guinea about exchanging of the experience from the countries and inviting to the COP29. I'm sure that we will do through with the IPU our best to make sure that all those who are eager to be there in Baku and who have a lot to bring to our joint efforts to fight the climate change, and which at the end reflect on the document which we will approve in Baku will be in Baku. So we will do our best. I put on my paper all the comments, and I may miss something, but I'm sure that We will work closely with the IPU and with our expert on every recommendation, every comment, and we'll make sure that valuable recommendations will be highlighted and included in the document. Thank you, Alexandra.
Thank you, Mr. Mamadov. Our last intervention from the floor will be from Canada, from Mrs. LaRouche, please.
Bonjour tout le monde, c'est un plaisir d'être avec
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is a sheer pleasure to be here with you this morning for me in Canada. It's always interesting to hear parliamentarian colleagues take the floor. And I would insist on the importance of funding transition. It is important to find new sources of funding to support industries, companies in this energy transition. We must support companies that are willing to decrease their greenhouse gas emissions. This is key. And then the monitoring. It is important to focus on monitoring because we set goals, but how can we make sure governments are held accountable for the goals they've set through international agreements? We must make sure that the laws are strong enough to hold governments and authorities accountable and make sure that we are on the right track. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much. This brings us to the end of the webinar. Please don't go yet. We would like to ask you to fill out a short survey. But before doing that, I want to thank you all for your fantastic interventions. This has been an incredibly informative and dynamic webinar. On behalf of the IPU, I would like to thank Mr. Mamadov, Mr. William, and all of you for your very active participation. The insights you have raised certainly provide some food for thought as we prepare for COP29, and Mr. Mamadov will share his outcome document this summer. Before disconnecting, please answer the two questions that you see on your screen. This is for evaluation purposes that help IPU with our work and further organization of our activities on climate change. As you do that, I would like to close this webinar. Thank you again, and I wish you a great day or evening. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, au revoir.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.
Merci, au revoir.